Hello, hey everyone. Good good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are. So we are starting one more session of Out of the Box Developer, and yeah, I just see here already a message from Samuel. Hey Samuel, how are you? Uh, Once it's retesting. Okay, I hope it's working fine. Can you just share a message again? So just to check that we are uh, really on live. And yeah, I also see here people joining us. So let me say hello to everyone. Hey, Thiago, how are you, man?
Hello, Yogo. Hello, John. I'm great. How about you?
Fine, thanks. I think we have lots to talk about today regarding to REST API. But yeah, let me just keep saying hello and then we're going to start this discussion. So, hey, Igor, how are you, man?
Hi Yogo, hi everyone. How you guys are doing? Yeah, we do have a lot of things to talk about. Good principles for REST APIs, and especially the bad ones that you should avoid. We'll be talking a lot about that on today. So grab your coffee and join us in this awesome discussion. Don't forget to let us know your questions in the chat.
Awesome, awesome, great advice. And you, Luis, how are you, man?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm fine. A little bit late here. Um, I
On
I'm
time,
anxious
man. On
about
time.
this topic. Oh, yeah, no problem. Um, Everybody is talking about REST APIs and how to go uh, further than the CRUD. So this is a great topic to discuss, and I'm looking forward to it.
That's cool, man. That's great. And you, Chila, how are you?
I am fine, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here today and learning not only about the best practices, but also what you need to avoid when designing REST API. So looking forward to the session today.
Awesome. Yes. So today we're going to talk about REST API. Actually, we bring this nice title, Red Flags Every Developer Should Know. And yeah, it's a big attention since REST API being the de facto standard solution for exposing your application on the web and other applications to interact with each other. I think there's a lot of things that we learned, that we built and learned during this with designing REST APIs. And today we are here with uh, uh, two of the authors of an amazing book that would be releasing. Uh, it's already released or it will be released, Thiago, Igor.
It's almost released. It's going to be released probably in August.
That's cool. That's cool. I hope I haven't done any spoiler with this information. But yeah, we have. Can I share the book cover here, Thiago? You so
Yes.
we're gonna talk about it. About the mastering RESTful web services with Java Protocol Guide, a protocol guide for building secure and scalable production ready REST APIs. So I think it's all about today's discussion and would be very interesting if you also had challenges while building your REST API. Um, I'm also not very sure if I know all the red flags that we're gonna be discussing today here, and would be interesting to hear about. I know there's a lot of interesting patterns that we can be following to avoid some surprise in the future, right? And yeah, I see here Samuel. Hey Samuel, good to see you here. Uh, I see your hello, and hey Andres, and nice to see you again as well. verbs on the endpoint name.
Yeah, he
Cool.
just started.
Already started, right?
Already started. That's one. That's one. We will
Awesome.
be kind of highlighting some points like that one that Andres brought to us. And in the book, we go much, much deeper. Not exactly on what you should not do, but mostly on how do you build it correctly and with different approach with code first, API first. We will cover a little bit more of all of that after our session, and we will have a special gift for you that stays with us until the end of the session, so stay tuned, guys.
Yeah, great. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, go ahead, Thiago. How we can start this discussion today?
maybe you that are watching us, maybe you can put on the chat what is your biggest challenge or the horrible thing that you have already seen in these many APIs, like verbs on the endpoint name, or probably there are many worse things that I know that many of us have already seen. So please put on the chat what is the red flag that you have already seen.
Yeah,
Um,
and if you're brave enough, you can even share the ones that you already did when you were learning. I'm pretty sure that anyone did at least one of these red flags once in their life when they're learning, and that's totally fine. The good thing is that you learn that's wrong and does not repeat it.
Well, I think I can start while people also get encouraged here. But when I was thinking about in the very uh, uh, long time ago, let's say long time ago, one thing that it ended up becoming a cumbersome issue in the future is when I do expose on the providing object that I will send to the client uh, more than I needed, more things than I needed. So I learned in the most difficult way how can be it is much difficult to take out anything from an object once you expose it on the API, then the opposite when you have to add something more on the API, when you have to add something more. I learned later that this is called Postle's law. When you have to you should be exposing only what is necessary on your API. And the reason, of course, why you would be motivated on exposing all the things that you're gonna be uh, uh, worrying about the future that uh, it's very far from or it will never come, right? Oh, I think someone in the future would like to have this information, so I will put everything here so I don't have to specify anything. I just send everything I have, and then the problem is that in the end you don't know who is using what attributes are used yet. So and then you lose all the control over your API. I don't know
Yeah,
if there is one thing that is mentioned in the red flags here you were planning to mention here, but it is one of the things I remember very well. Oh, there was a pattern, a name for this kind of issue.
it becomes a nightmare when you overexpose your things because people then, especially business, when they look at that, they want functionality. They wanna use everything, even once, and that leads the less is the better. And then when they are requested, you started exposing what is required. What I have seen as kind of related with that, Hugo, is especially with juniors at the beginning, when they tend to exposure entities instead of creating the DTO interface, and that leads to a lot of security issues because you're exposing your database schema. That also breaks the API if the schema changes, because it will automatically change the response or the request without noticing the who is using that API. So yes, we need to have that concern of separating the layers from what the user is seeing and from the internal implementation pretty well.
Yeah, and talking about that, so define these layers, these different layers, means that we need to understand and define what we want to expose. Because a long time ago, I don't know if nowadays the same thing, but a long time ago, we start to think about the application, start from the database. So the first thing is think about the schema, the things on the database, and then it's just expose that to a REST API or whatever, and it's like it's done. And because most of the applications use REST, and there are this kind of thing that you mentioned that it's when you do something wrong and you have a break chain, we need to have versioning. And this is another thing that it's maybe a challenge to do this kind of thing, to keep two versions, and when you need to deprecate one of these versions and also remove this, so have a life cycle that's hard to deal. So maybe a good approach, and talking about the red flags, maybe one good approach, it's try to start thinking about your REST API first, and then it goes to maybe API first approach, that we think first on the design of the API, and we have also many advantages about that. Igor, if you want to discuss a little bit about it,
Yeah,
you have like
totally.
many advantages.
Totally agree with that. And joining the versioning with proper documentation, you can. It's a way how you tell your customers, hey, you need more features, but this is a disruptive feature. Let's imagine a scenario that it's a disruptive feature. So I'm offering you a V2 version because I cannot simply change the previous version. And having that well stated in the documentation, the customers have enough time to transition and to implement the V2, to migrate from V1 to V2. And if the V1 needs to be deprecated at some time, usually they should, but in practice, we do see a lot of exposure APIs that they are on V13 and V2 is still up and running. But usually, like Thiago mentioned, the life cycle of the application, they should have deprecated APIs as well. That's what you meant, I believe, Thiago.
Yeah, and there are many ways to version the applications. I don't know, you that are watching, please put in the chat here if you have already done some strategy, because there are many strategies that you can do to apply versioning. So please put on the chat here what is your experience to that, if you have deal with any problem, like I don't know, maybe have not done any kind of versioning and only release a break chain. I know that this happens. Even when there is versioning strategies, this happen, unfortunately. So yeah, we have many
I
messages
see.
in the
Yeah,
chat,
I
right?
see some messages here. Let me just say hello here
There's
to
a
the
guy
great
here
one.
in the
Yeah.
chat. It's called Luis Real. He mentioned a lot of some red flag. Oh, but you're here, Luis. Let us know those.
Yeah, sure. So I just listed some of the red flags that I usually talk with my students, and there is, I think, a lot more, but only to mention there. to be part of the chat as well. So, but you
That's
that
great.
are watching us, please comment on the chat some red flags and how you overcome this. How is your strategy right now?
Yeah, those that you mentioned here, I believe we will be touching a little bit on each of them. Like we just mentioned now, the versioning, right?
Yeah, I mentioned that versioning strategy, missing versioning strategy as a red
Mhm.
flag. Hugo also discussed something about documentation. Documentation is something that I'm always telling my students to have a good documentation. They usually only put the Swagger there, and they don't configure anything, don't put more information. We also talk about authentication, but the same thing, they only want to configure the basics, and sometimes we need to go further and think more about some other strategies. We have to test more. I also mentioned that test environment because I know lots of people that use the production database or the homologation one to test the APIs instead of a mock. Maybe you should mock first and then try. I don't know. I need your opinion because you're the specialist here. But I usually try to do this. And more recently, I'm studying a little bit more about scalability, and I think I never really thought about like the scalability when I'm building the API, and I think this is maybe a red flag. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think we can talk about all of that because there are many
Nice.
cool things to talk about. But before starting, just talking a little bit uh, about what Andres mentioned on the beginning, the verbs on the endpoint names. I think this is a big problem that happens in many old applications, like doesn't apply the glory of REST. So use only post method or only get method, or there is no standard for the endpoint names, or like Andres said, use verbs like create / create, and can also use like a get / create. I hope don't see that kind of thing, but I know that this happens. Or use like a put and / create, and this endpoint it's not idempotent. So this kind of bad things happens, and for that there's standards. They are the RFC created with by Roy Fielding and other folks, and there are these kind of standards. And these standards is very important because if we do not follow them, it's really hard to move from a company to other or from a project to other, and yeah, uh, keep a good productivity or keep understand things, because if every company try to define a completely totally different strategy guidelines, it's really hard. And because we're talking about guidelines, I think guidelines it's a very good start point for big companies to define. So if you have many microservices, many REST APIs, maybe defining a good guideline, it's a very good start point. We see that in many big companies, Adidas, Azure, GitHub, many big companies have guidelines, and maybe this is a good start point to avoid these common mistakes. And yeah, I don't know if anyone want to add anything else, and so then we can go to
Yeah,
what Luis point, because I think
y- y-
it's a
you have
good points.
mentioned lots of points. I believe that these wrong usage of using verbs instead of nouns. Maybe it's soap heritage. It comes from the old the old services where you just got post and that's it, and you needed to explain in the path in some way what this does, and that's a problem. But REST is evolution of that. So that's why we need to use nouns instead, and you keep the verbs for the methods inside the application. Just answering Luis mentioned about the scalability, more and more often in the market, we do see the developer role, the engineer role, and the DevOps role getting merged. So it's more and more common for the developer to know about how to write Terraforms, write a Docker file, and at least ship it in a starter way within your application. And then, depending on the role and especially on the company, if that's a startup, probably these engineers will have architects roles as well. So they will need to configure the Kubernetes and how many pods will have it running. So it's kind of that's on the infrastructure side, right? It goes a little bit beyond the application itself. And let me see. Tiago mentioned a couple of things more here. But from what we do have here, let's see on the list. Test environment, that's mandatory. You need to have its testing.
Yeah, but talking about that, because Liz mentioned mock server or mock application, and I think,
Yeah,
Liz, this is a very good
white.
bet to have this kind of thing, because it's very important the developer be able to test and to guarantee the things locally, and also have integration tests, these kind of things. It's very important also to test with some kind of environment, but be able to test in a local environment with some mock servers, like using WideMock or mock server. There's this application, mock server, this is the name. Mock server, WideMock, test containers,
Test
anything else
containers. Yeah, I
that
was going
that
to
can
mention.
help uh, to test locally. I think it's very important also to increase the productivity, because sometimes you can have some problem in the environment, because usually you use like the developer or test environment. You do not use the pre-production environment. So maybe the dev environment can have many people working in this kind of environment, and can have a lot of uh, let's say race conditions conflicts. So yeah, not a
Yeah,
good thing to have.
I would say that's mandatory to have these kind of tests. And everything that we're talking here, that's a good key point. We are in the AI era that everyone talks about artificial intelligence. If you don't know this stuff, AI will generate you garbage. Tiago mentioned here about the guidelines, and guidelines are so important for you to know, and also to any code generator that you use, any AI assistant that you use, they also need to follow guidelines. He just mentioned a couple of them from Adidas, they're from Microsoft, and even Cursor offer its own guidelines. Juni from JetBrains offers its own guidelines, and they are great for you as a developer and for the AI assistant as well. And then you just feed that with more guidelines that you needed to follow you and also the AI assistant. So, and guidelines and tests, they are kind of mandatory to avoid these common pitfalls. And AI is great to help you generating integration tests, unit tests, but you need to know how to create it by hand. Because if it fails and AI is able to fix it, you need to do it by yourself. So that's
Yeah, AI can help a lot creating this kind of test and generating this code, but I totally agree with you, Igor. You need to understand, otherwise, it will fail, and then you will try to fix, and you do not know how to do that. You ask AI, and then you go to a loop and hope that the AI will be able to solve your problem because you don't know how to solve a problem that the AI creates for you. So it's not a good strategy. And because Igor talked about guidelines, maybe we can go to some polemic questions like the last one that Pedro asked here on the chat. And
So,
if anyone else have this kind of question, please. But here on the chat, I think these questions are great.
well, I would like to say hello. I see Pedro's message here. Hello, Pedro. Good to have you here. Andres, also just before moving to Pedro's question, Andres just mentioned it here about what I've mentioned is to the problem I mentioned about we put everything in the API, so to take out it's difficult. One solution is to document it and deprecate the API that you would like to change, and that makes sense. Well, and I would like also to add regarding to guidelines, I think, and AI stuff, I think that make total sense. If you have good guidelines, you will have better AI responses, AI outputs that uses this guideline as a context for your API. If you have an unstandardized APIs that is also difficult to the AI itself find the patterns for you, you're gonna have a lot of difficult time, and AI might not be able to generate a lot of stuff that it would be able if you follow, or if you have a nice guideline for to follow. And also about AI yet. There's a lot of people talking about the new AI. The new SaaS is old and now it's all agentic. And well, I don't know if you would like to add something about that. But the truth is that behind the scenes, all these agents needs to use some API behind the scenes to make some actions to do anything that is useful in the real world. So there's still there will still be a lot of APIs around all those agentic. They will use another type of APIs, but those existing ones would stay for for longer than people are imagining. I don't know if you two had some kind of discussion on this topic.
I agree with you, Thiago. And also from the last comment from Pedro that they mention in the context, engineering is the new prompt engineering. Not sure you and Pedro are the AI guys, and we will have a session, a completely session about AI at the end of this month for any of you guys that wants to know how to code using the power of AI. Stay tuned. At the end of this month, we have another session just on that. But from as far as I understand, is that at first there was the vibe code that was kind of blindly using AI. I just tell AI, oh, generate me a system that does that. And then people started complaining that it does not work or work poorly or does a lot of boilerplate code. But as far as you feed that with more context, like we were talking about guidelines, even inside the team in your company, if you're following good best practice guidelines and your coworker is not following good best guidelines, his pull requests will be with endpoints without versioning, code without let's make an example, paths using verbs and things that makes no sense. If your team does not follow a guideline, can be a company guideline or can be a global guideline used by the community. The same goes if you apply that to AI, to code generator. You're feeding AI with context. So now AI has a guidance on how should I generate that code. This is what I think that they are mentioning now with context engineering. Is the evolution of prompt engineering, if I'm not wrong. But
Yeah, only bring back the REST subject. So yeah, having a great guidelines is also good because these agents have this kind of context and this kind of thing. So having guidelines, it's not just useful for humans, but also for AI, right?
yes, exactly.
And
That's
this is
the
the
point.
point. Yeah.
Exactly.
But going back to the red flags because I really like this red flag from Pedro, that this question, and
Go on.
also what
The
Luis share here. If anyone else have any kind of this type of questions, go ahead and ask. So Pedro asked here. I don't know, Hugo, do you want to read the question or should
It's
I?
the 404.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
when endpoint does
Protocol.
not exist or when the entity does not exist.
Yeah, I like this question because this is not only the two options, there are more options. And you can use on both case. And again, it's not the only two case that you can use 404. So, for example, 404, it's the default case for most frameworks. When the endpoint does not exist, you receive a 404. And this is the most common case. But you can also throw a 404 when someone tries to get an entity by ID, for example, passing the ID, and it does not exist. This is a common case also. Usually, you should not use 404 when you try to return a list of elements and the list is empty. In this case, you should, or you have like a path parameters to filter this list. In this type of case, usually people does not throw 404. Um, but yeah, these two scenarios are totally available, and there are others like, for example, GitHub, GitLab. They usually throw 404 when you do not have access to a resource that you try to access. So if you try to access a resource that you do not have access, instead of throwing you 403, for example, you receive a 404. So you don't even know that you cannot access this resource. You think that it does not exist. So yeah, so it's another common case.
Yeah, it just blindly denies you. You think it does not exist. That happened to me as well. Also, I've seen the 422 unprocessable entity with views on some APIs. That's not so common, but I've used that, implemented. I've also used that for also when the entity does not exist. But it much depends on how much information do you want to give to the customer. Like Tiago just mentioned, GitHub does, they don't want you to know that you don't have access to that resource on GitHub. They just tell you that it does not exist. So don't keep trying. It's even a security measure if you think about it, because they will not try to brute force access against that, trying different GWT tokens to access it in a not allowed way. They just tell it that it doesn't exist. So it much depends on what do you want to communicate to your customer or to the client in this case.
Yeah. Should we bring the red flags that Luis talked on the chat, or you wanna go in
Just
another way?
wanted to say hello to more people that showed up, like Anderson, Cacheta. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Max is here with us. Hello, Max. How are you
Hi,
doing?
Max.
And I think Andres was talking about the 404 error. That shouldn't be 503.
Yes, 503, it's per gateway, right? So you can throw it if you are doing some kind of integration and you have an error, and this kind of error, it's something that you should not expect it. So then you can throw 403, for example, that you are saying that you have some internal error that the client is not able to solve this kind of thing, and in this case, neither you. So there is an integration error, and it's like, I don't know, you're integrating with some public API or internal API, there is an error. You don't know how to solve that. It's not available, for example. 403, yeah, 403 is like I said, it's because I always mess with 401. It's oh, I forget the word. If anyone want to help me, there is
It's
401 and 403.
forbidden one. It's the forbidden one. In the case that you mentioned on the GitHub, they could just return you forbidden
Yeah, but
or
the 403 usually they don't use 403, the GitHub, the GitLab, because of
yes,
security
exactly.
concerns, right?
Exactly. Like
This
I
is,
mentioned, yes. It depends much on what you want to communicate, right?
yeah,
Eh,
it's like your guidelines, right? What is
exactly.
your guidelines? Do you wanna throw 403 because you wanna share this information to the client or not?
Yes. Yes.
And I think
Usually, guys, when you see one on the 400 family, that's an error on your side. When that's on the 500 family, it's an server side error. And you also have the 3 and the 2 that I don't remember by head right now. But guys, I would also like to mention about one red flag that's really critical. It's about idempotency. It's a hard word to mention. Idempotency. Especially when you're using the verbs in the right way. When you call get, usually get is the known problem, but there's a clear separation of concerns that everyone must have when you're using the proper operations, the proper verbs when developing an API. And delete and put, they must behave always the same, no matter how many times you call them. Usually that's not a problem with get, because get, you're just retrieving data, so he's always independent. Correct me if I say something wrong here. But you're changing the whole entity. You're updating an entity, and delete. You delete the resource on the server. You can call it 100 times. It just needs to return it the same I believe it's 201 for delete that was
It's show
mainly used.
free, no content, because usually you
No
only
content, yeah.
delete the element and only that. We do not need to retrieve anything. And if you call delete 10 times, the result is the same because you do not have the data, whatever, in your
Yeah, but
database or whatever.
the common error that I have seen, especially with delete, Thiago, is an over error handling. You deleted it once and then you call it again, and the developer just thought that it will be nice to inform the user that this resource does not exist, and he throws an error back on the delete. So you're breaking idempotency in this case, or even other that it's much worse is when you're creating lots of new resources using a put. You can use a put for create resources when they don't exist, and we do explain that for you in the book. But if that resource already exists, he just needs to be updated.
Yeah, this is a really good point because if you're using but, this verb, you should keep that in mind that this is a idempotent method. So if you use that, let's say for create something, it should create only one time. Like for example, let's think about the comments on the Play Store. So you are going to put 5 star and write something. You can do that only once. So this can be a put because you do that only once, and then if you want to change, you change the whole thing because you change the stars and the comment. It's the only thing that you have. So maybe this is a good case for a put because you do only one time. You are not able to post two comments and two comments on the same for the same app. This is one example, and again, this is a really good red flag because if you use put and someone are trying to use your API and you use put to create different, if you're using put for the same purpose of post, you can have a really bad behavior for the clients. So yeah.
Exactly. Then you need to use posts if you want to create new resources.
But because
There's
you're but if we are using post and let's say that we need to use post and I want
it
this kind
if
of
it changes.
idempotence, but I want this kind of idempotence because I like that because okay, so I only create once, right? It is possible. Is it possible
Yeah,
to create
both ways are correct, right, Thiago?
a
Uh,
post that is idempotent?
no, as far as I know, posts should not be independent. Every time you call a post, it creates a new resource, and it should never update a resource. And a put can do the two game. That's why you can have an API that does not have a post. There are both ways are valid, post and put. Then you decide which one you're gonna use. If you're using put um, for creating and updating, you have that extra logic you need to carry into your service. But if you want to have that clearly separated, that's it. You just use it.
I have a question. You're talking about the right use of verbs, and you mentioned guidelines. So you probably know about the Richardson maturity model. And my question is about the third level. He mentions the HOs. So are hypermedia controls really necessary?
This is a good question. My answer is the short answer, no. No, and I don't think in most of the case we need that. I really don't think so. Usually it brings more, it becomes more hard to maintain the API, and many APIs does not take advantage on having the hyperlinks. So the short answer, no. But if you are able to use them, so yeah, it's very good. It's very helpful.
Maybe when he wrote that back then, that would be the idea that he had in mind. But these days, I don't think so. I don't think so. The HTTPs would be helpful. I've tried that myself. That's interesting, but not mandatory. I would say having the documentation, a well properly formatted, updated Open API, it's much more desirable instead of the HTTPs, in my opinion.
I think it was an idea that didn't really catch, right?
Yeah, but again, it's helpful in some case. If you have hyperlink, you can have like a server-driven UI or something like that. So again, it can be very helpful because you can know that you can, for example, delete the entity, the resource, because you have the link. It can be helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful but not mandatory. I think your dog wants to tell us something, Tiago.
Yes, I
Give
was
him the
thinking
word.
yes, he want a ball. He brings me the ball and he wants me to throw the ball for him.
He wants to the voice.
Yeah, I think so. uh, and yeah, because you're also maybe close to the end, because you have many things that please talk here, and I want to talk a little bit about them. Maybe we can go through them because on the end we have a gift, right, for
That's
the
true.
audience. So maybe we
That's true,
can
guys.
go through what Luis said. What do you think so? The Luis
Let's
red
go.
flag.
Let's go.
So
You want?
yeah, sorry, Thiago, I know that you also have content that you would like to share.
Yeah, I would prefer to go to Luis' points and then I can share the do a recap and share the GIF for everyone here.
Perfect.
Can
Cool.
be. So Luis talk about some red flags like poor or no documentation. So we can start here. So like we mentioned, maybe start doing API first. It's a really good approach because then you have a good documentation. And another red flag that I see very often, it's don't using the the beam validations for the API because you can use beam validation that's very powerful. It throws bad request. You using the frameworks, the famous frameworks, Spring, Quarks. All of them implements the problem detail specification, so you can have a good way to deal with this kind of problems. And having a good and well documentation, it's very helpful for the clients. So yeah, I
Input
think
validation.
this
That's one of
very
the
important.
biggest red flags, Tiago. Just to
Yeah,
mention, you need to control what's going into your application, the format, and what you're expecting. Otherwise, this can break. So that's one of the biggest red flags you need to be aware.
yeah, not only to help the client but also to avoid issues, right?
Yeah,
Security issues. So yeah.
exactly. Also, that leads to the second point on Luis' list, the wiki authentication. The validation is part of it, and if your API is exposed directly to the internet, you need to have tokens to authenticating or auth or something to handle it in a proper manner. But
Yeah,
usually that's not the best architecture approach. Usually these days it will be much better to have an API gateway in front of your applications, more on the design side.
yeah, and there are many ways to do authentication. So yeah, it depends on your type of application. But I totally agree with Igor. Having some API gateway can help you to deal with that. Also, to have HTTPS, also like, to give you some uh, resilience control over your API. So, like have timeout, rate limiting, and this kind of thing. So yeah, it's very important.
Yeah. The next topic you mentioned were versioning. We've discussed a little bit about that. We need to implement those when your application is evolving.
Yeah, and there are many strategies.
Yeah.
Later on, I will share some things. I will do a quick recap, and I will go share some strategies also for versioning because there are many strategies, and it's very important to think. Oh, if you have a break chant, there is a link for that. I don't have it here. I can search it later, but you can there is a link that you can post your current version, like okay, you have your documentation, your swagger file, your OpenAPI file, and then you can post the second version, like okay, I want to do this chant, is it a break chant or not? And there is a website that tells you this kind of thing. There is also a Maven plugin for that, and it's very important to avoid break chain because this is very harmful. This it's not good. It's not paying. It's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
And we
moving on,
practically cover that list, the testing.
the test
We've
we talk
mentioned
about, and
we
maybe the
even
scalability.
yes. For
The scalability.
scalability, just give
Yeah.
a simple hint on that. I've been in roles that I needed to to develop the Docker file as well, and to manage the pods, at least on test and QA. On prod, they had their own team, but probably on very small startups, you will be the all you do guy. You will be the developer, you will be the support, the QA, and also the DevOps, and that's good. Well, I don't like it. It's good on the knowledge side, but if you're also the prod guy, if you not have a life, probably they will call you during the night when you're sleeping if something goes bad. You can learn a lot of from it, but not live on that rhythm for a very long time, unless it's your own business. You're creating your own application, you're selling yourself your product, and that's on the starting phase. And then you're going to create a team that will work for you, and you become an entrepreneur, and you're putting your hands on building your own dreams. In that case, if you really want it, I think it's worth it to put all of that effort, but that's how things goes.
Yeah, but keep talking a little bit about scalability. Usually, microservices and REST APIs, they are stateless, so you do not have state. So it's kind of easy to scale because, like Igor mentioned, you can use Kubernetes and this kind of things, and you can have a HPA to scale it for you. You only need to define the resource and this kind of things. So it's not a hard thing to do, You can also use, if you're using Java 21, you can use virtual threads to increase your throughput. There are many ways to increase your scalability. The only concern that I see is when you have some database, for example, and you need to deal with race conditions. So this is maybe a problem. And this is one case when you can throw a 409, if I'm not wrong, the HTTP conflict. If I'm not wrong, it's 409, not 100% sure. But yeah, this is one case where you can have this problem with scalability because you have some race conditions. But in most of the case, I don't see scalability as a problem in the world where we have Kubernetes and these kind of things that give us all these features out of the box. But if you want to do that manually, so this is a little bit harder because you need to configure, for example, in Nginx or procs to do the load balance for you and maybe have some kind of HPA done manually. So it's much harder to do all these kind of things manually. So to scale more, I would say that going to Kubernetes or some environment that it's managed, it's the best approach. And also have do not have state on your API, so have stateless. That is
Absolutely.
the
And
best.
REST APIs, they are totally stateless, guys. They don't have state at all. And if you don't want to bother too much with scalability and you're just starting and you're just focused on the application, you can go with a service like AWS Beanstalk that you just put your application there, you pay, and you don't concern about how much requests they're being done. It will scale automatically. It will handle the concurrencies if the database is on a RDS AWS as well. Of course, it costs more, but if the application is small with low demand at the beginning, that can be a path for starting. And then after, you just do a more infrastructure, focus on DevOps, refactor, and move that to EKS if that's on AWS or any other cloud provider to have it properly handled and scaled. That would be the points.
Yeah, and only answering the Pedro questions before share some recap and the GIF. Pedro asks here, actually he shares here. We use request ID for post creation idempotency. Is that okay? Yes, but this is one strategy that you can use. If you wanna use Boost and want to use idempotency, you can have a ID that usually are uh, provided from the client. So the client passes this ID, you store this ID, and then you can check this ID and have this idempotency behavior that it's very helpful in some case, like I don't know, you want to avoid two double clicks and creating two requests for something. I don't know. I'm trying to think in an example, but yeah, you can avoid this kind of uh, creating many things uh, using this kind of strategy. It's a good one. Okay, so if you do not have any other question, I don't know if you have any questions, maybe I can share some recap and then I will share a gift for everyone here that stay with us to the end.
Yeah, if you're still now, congratulations. You will be eligible to our gift and become a restful master. Go on, Tiago.
Okay, I don't know, I can share my screen.
I
Sheila,
tried.
you can?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. So we talked about the glory of rest, like what Luis shared here the third level, that it's the glory. It's having hypermedia control, it's having HFS, it's having API that you can navigate through the links. So you have the root and have all the links, all the resource. And again, this can be helpful, but in most of the case, I don't see this being used, at least not being helpful. I think this is the most important thing. Like, you waste time to do this kind of hypermedia things, and you do not have some benefits from it. So I don't think it's very important to have this. But the second level, it's very important. The second level, it's the most of companies use. It's having the HTTP verbs well defined. Have, like Andrea shared, doesn't use verb in the resource on the endpoint. Yeah, it's having well defined REST application. Okay, we also talk about Open API. So we discuss about API first. API first, it's basically you create the documentation, and then you can share the documentation with a client, and also use it to generate the class, all the files that will help you during the process of implementing the API. So having a well-defined API, it's a good approach. In my current company, we do use API first. We talked about versioning. There are many strategies. Here are 4 strategies that you can use for versioning. You can use URL path strategy, that it's the most common one, that it's using the v1 on the URL. So you can v1, v2, whatever. You can do that. You can use care parameters. That sounds a little bit strange, a little bit different. But if I'm not wrong, this is the guideline from the Azure using on the path. The content negotiation, this is a good strategy also. I think Spring Initializer used content negotiation. And there is also HTTP header. If I'm not wrong, GitHub use HTTP header. I think Azure used to use, but using HTTP header, a custom HTTP header, it's not a good practice. You can do that, but it's not a good one, because you start creating many different for each application, and can become a little bit mess. You can create different headers for each REST API. It's possible, and then it become a mess. So trade-offs. So this is the reason why Azure changed to care parameter, if I'm not wrong.
The one that is pretty clear to the customer is on the path. The others, they look very hidden ones. If you just want to keep that hidden, maybe the other options.
All of them have benefits and drawbacks. Yep. It's the trade-offs of life, right?
From exactly.
IT. So exactly. Which one should I choose? Depends.
Depends what you want to accomplish. That's the goal.
Yes. Okay, moving on. We have also tracing. We discussed a little bit about, I think we didn't, right? This is very important also. So if you have many applications, let's say that you have 3 applications, and you do not have trace ID, if you have not a way to know where is the request pass, the trace from this request, this can be a problem. So having Micrometer, the standards, the famous, the most frameworks give you this kind of things for free, libraries that do that for you and create these kind of things. You can do that manually also, but it's very important to have this kind of things, because if you didn't have, it's really hard to trace. And if you are not able to trace, it's hard to find bugs. So here it's another image that you can see that we have the all the calls and the time that it took for each one, the content, this kind of things helps a lot, and you need to debug and find bugs and this kind of things.
Yeah.
And
Distributed systems, guys, you need observability. This is
yeah,
kind of mandatory. The span ID, it identifies each one, but the transaction ID, it travels through the whole ecosystem. Doesn't matter if you have 2 or 20 microservices, it will follow. And having a local place where you can see the logs of all of the microservices you have in your system, it's key to find where the issue happened. The image that Thiago is showing, it's kind of showing the time that each operation took here. It could be multiple services, or in that example it's just showing the operation. But you can have a dashboard like this and and showing all the microservices or all the services within an ecosystem, and that's key. Imagine a financial service that the transaction didn't happen. It just stuck somewhere. The customer is very angry. He wants his money. The money was withdrawn from his account and did not reach on the other side. What do? You go through 20 services trying to find out error logs? No, you need to have a proper observability implemented on these scenarios, and then you will have dashboards to warn you and figure out quicker where the error is and to fix it as much as possible, especially in financial services, guys. Just to have it added, Thiago.
yeah, thanks. And before sharing the GIF, I think we have many good comments here. I think I need some tips from Andres to become a master on REST. I don't know if Chila or Luis, if you can share the comments here.
You mean this one?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
he's resting a lot. It's a good one.
George also mentioned a good thing here. I think I use this excuse when someone wants to use hypermedia in something that we do not need hypermedia. So
Yeah.
basically, in my opinion, the hypermedia of level 3 increase the payload, and it does. So then this can be an issue in network constraints. Yeah, I don't think it can be a big issue because it's not too much, but I like this excuse because yeah, sometimes hypermedia doesn't bring any benefit. So it's
In the past, it did more issue. Or if you're having a bad network, depending much on the country. But these days, network has evolved so much that they usually are not an issue anymore. But they are not used anymore. Things have changed.
yeah. So okay, so moving on to the GIF. So here is the GIF. Okay, so like Yogo mentioned on the beginning, we wrote a book, me, Igor, and more folks. Marian, that was here on the past, Pedro, and Silvio. We wrote this book, Mastering RESTful Web Service with Java. And this is a QR code where you can you can go to the Packet website and buy the book with a coupon, a discount. So go ahead and enjoy this discount because I don't know how long it will last, but I think it's just a few days. So hurry up and enjoy this discount. And this is the gift. So I
And
hope you
this is
enjoy. And only one last thing.
yeah.
This link will go to my page, okay, my blog page. So I every week I share something related with Java, web applications, things that can help you to keep growing. So if you'd like to subscribe for free, go ahead, subscribe, and I'm posting every week something new that can help you to keep updated and keep improving your soft skills, your soft/skills.
Yeah, that's great, Thiago. And
Exactly.
guys,
Please.
another surprise for you. If you pre-order your book using this discount that we're offering right now, and keep your receipts of both, because we're scheduling a live conversation on Zoom with all the authors to talk with you one to one, to learn and to listen to you and to have you answer questions that you would like. And you have the opportunity to be with us, with me, with Tiago, with Marian, with Silvio, with Pedro, and in a live conversation like we are talking here, but not you're just watching us. You will be able to talk with us, and through live, doesn't matter from where you are. Uh, that's another surprise that I would like to offer to our audience here. If you get the book is amazing. You will get a lot of knowledge from RESTful web services with that, and and looking forward to have you in our Zoom call together.
Hey guys, actually, I just grabbed it here,
Oh,
and
really?
it's indeed a really great discount. So thank you so much. Really love the
That's
gift.
Yeah,
amazing,
thank you.
Luis. Amazing, Luis. That will be great. So Anderson also got his one. That's great, Anderson. Keep your receipt, and we will let you guys know how we will handle this live conversation with you guys that are pre-ordering the book right now. And also, Tiago mentioned on his blog, you have here the QR code for accessing his blog. Subscribe to his blog. Also, you can access my blog on igorfragadev.com. I'm also writing stuff about RESTful, OTI, and Java. Subscribe there as well, and and it's awesome to have you guys on here and sharing our masterpiece with you guys. That was a lot of work, and it can really take you to the next level as a REST Java developer with all the knowledge. We put a lot of effort and love and on that, and we really hope that you guys like it. Any final words, guys, you would like to add? Tiago, Tila, Luis?
Only thanks the audience to be here, and also everyone here, Chila, Luis. Thanks, Luis, for your questions. The red flag points. It was very helpful, and thank you everyone here that share, everyone in the chat that share the questions and also the comments. And thanks again to Anderson Cacheta that bought the book and also the comments and to be here.
Great, guys. Thank you for everyone that commented here. Thank you for you that is watching. I would like to thank to our awesome team here, Tiago, Tila, Luis, also Hugo that need to left earlier. to Pedro that couldn't join that, but was very active here in the comments, and to everyone watching us. It's always great to be with you guys.
Yeah, really great conversation. Learned so much here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you so much.
Also, thanks for the conversation. So I learned 1 or 2 points that I can apply the next time when I am dealing with REST APIs. So I was enjoying this conversation very much. And also thank you very much for your audience and for the questions we received. And so see you next time.
That's
See you
great.
next session.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care,
you so
guys.
much,
Bye.
guys.
Bye. See you.